Hello, I thought I'd make this video. The previous video was actually recorded towards the end of May, but I've been without internet connection for between 2 and 3 weeks. But very kindly, my closest neighbour allowed me to use their Starlink, but I didn't want to abuse the generosity and upload videos and things, but whilst I was at the neighbour's, something caught my eye. It's a book I've read before, and it's nice to have a refresh. It's this John Suchet, Beethoven, The Man Revealed. The book does exactly what the cover suggests. It doesn't go into the technicalities of the music, but focuses on Beethoven the man. And there is a certain amount of polar opposites surrounding Beethoven. One being, as you can read in this book, that Beethoven was arrested because he looked like a tramp, which was in stark contrast in Vienna to his reputation as Europe's foremost leading composer, certainly of Vienna. And this theme of sort of almost polar opposites surrounds Beethoven about his life, and also about these two pieces of music I read about, two cantatas. And it dawned on me, I don't recall whether I've actually heard them before. Well, that was soon answered, because from previous experience on maybe just the first hearing of the Mass in C, Opus 86, or the Missa Solemnis, or Fidelio, his only opera, certainly I have been astonished and blown away by the mastery and the genius that comes through in his choral works. Now, this book suggests that Beethoven was least comfortable with the human voice and was much happier writing for instruments, but I find, this is personal experience, I don't find that to be the case. So whilst reading this book, I came across these two cantatas. The cantata on the death of Josef II, Emperor of Austria and the Holy Roman Empire, and the ascension of his successor, Leopold II. You have a sort of contrast here of one is more like a funeral cantata and the other one is more a celebration. So you've got this contrast thing going on with these two works, which I consider really as a pair, because the end of the first cantata, the same theme is picked up at the start of the second cantata, so they do seem to go together. What is perhaps most astonishing about these two cantatas, which are catalogue numbers Werke ohne Opusal 87 and 88, work without opus number, catalogued as number 87 and 88. To someone who doesn't know, it could be thought that they're quite late works. But what is so astonishing about these two cantatas they were commissions while Beethoven was still in Bonn, where he was a member of the orchestra, in the year 1790. So Beethoven was around the age of 19 when he composed these two cantatas. And they are astounding in their mastery. What is also astounding about it is that musicians of the time declared them unplayable. And yet, at the same time, not long after they were written, they were held in high regard as being masterpieces, which seems ridiculous. If they're masterpieces, why aren't they being performed? it was to take 57 years after Beethoven's death for one of these cantatas to receive its first performance in Vienna in, I think it was the year 1884. And today these two works are very rarely heard, and I had it confirmed. Now this is just personal opinion on first impression of these two works. I can honestly say I was blown away. The sheer genius comes through again, because it's almost, do I really want to risk experiencing a new Beethoven work with the human voice? Is it going to live up to the standard of what I've already heard? Well, certainly these two cantatas go on that same trajectory, that I was astonished and blown away by the mastery of it. I can hear a foreshadowing of Wagner and Bruckner in these works. It's history repeating itself, because Bruckner had the same reaction from the Vienna Orchestra, declaring his third symphony and second symphony as unplayable. It does bring into question how good were these musicians of this era, 1790 up to sort of the 1860s, compared to today. Arguably, you could say that the construction of the actual instruments is far better today, particularly with the grand piano. Because certainly some of the works like Beethoven's Hammerklavier would probably collapse one of these old forte pianos. They weren't built to take that sort of hammering, shall we say. That's actually Beethoven's own word, or his name, for that 29th piano sonata. So the complexity about all this, or the polar opposites, a question that comes from all this to me is not only why haven't I took the trouble to look for these works and actually hear them before now. So the book has been, and having no internet connection, has been a beautiful timely reminder, and as I've discovered two absolute masterpieces that left me enthralled, excited, wanting to hear more. It's a strange effect I found with these two cantatas as well. It's almost, whilst listening to it, of a sort of, I want to be there taking part in the ceremonies. I don't know what it is. There's something in the music. It sort of draws you into it. But the cantata on the death of Joseph II is not a mournful affair. It's certainly respectful, but it is powerful. It is inspiring, it is motivating, it's uplifting. And the second cantata on the ascension of Leopold II as Emperor of Austria and the Holy Roman Emperor follows on from this and has this beautiful celebratory aspect to it, a sort of triumph about it. It's almost like a triumph over death, you could say, but across these two cantatas. So the other strange thing about this, and it's something I sort of hinted at in the last video, that 2027 will mark the 200th anniversary of the death of Beethoven in Vienna on the 29th of March 1827. So we've got just under 2 years. These works, I find astonishing that they are so unknown apart from in text, because I certainly knew of them, but now I can say that I've actually heard them, and what beautiful experiences they both were. This is a very different Beethoven than the one you're probably used to associated with the Third or the Fifth Symphony or the Ninth Symphony. This fierce man with wild hair who had severe health problems and had this reputation for a fearsome temper. But this is a Beethoven of 19 years old who has not got the onset of deafness at this stage, who is completely fresh, completely new. And as a composer, I'm not sure if he, don't quote me on this because I haven't actually looked into it, but his creative output was in its infancy, so I don't know if there was any other orchestral works at this stage. I think there might have been music for a Ritter ballet, which is work without opus number 1. And maybe a few other pieces, but the genius of these two cantatas begs me to ask the question, why are they not more well known today? Why are they not being performed more often? Again, it's only personal opinion, but that pull of, I want to be there, I want to be taking part in the occasion, which is quite bizarre considering one of them is a funeral, but there's something very powerful in that music. And it isn't lost on me the irony of, whilst I've been deaf to the outside world with having no internet connection, Beethoven was deaf to the outside world later in life. But I can't remember who said this, but I seem to remember a quote that it's not Beethoven is deaf to the outside world, but the world is deaf to Beethoven. And certainly there is a deafness when it comes to these two cantatas. They need to be heard more often. So you'll find in the playlist under Beethoven, it's just a single playlist for Beethoven at this stage, but I will be adding more and more works, and there maybe come to a point where I have to split off orchestral from chamber music, and they become playlists in their own right. But for now, you'll find those two cantatas. The first one, I've put 2 recordings on there. There's one from 1965 and a more recent one where you can also see the score, and same for the second cantata with the same orchestra. I forget the actual names. I should have made notes really, but I just wanted to share this, and I invite you to give these 2 cantatas a listen. And that first impression from those opening bars with the orchestra, how does that feel to you? Do you share that same feeling from that? Does the genius of Beethoven come through? Because since his lifetime, he has been one of the most enduring composers, and I can't think really of many other composers who you can say has changed the course of history in the world of art than Beethoven. It's almost like an unwritten formality that every conductor needs to record a Beethoven symphony cycle to be considered to be a worthy conductor. Likewise, if you're a pianist, it's almost like a requirement that you have to record all 32 piano sonatas. Such is the magnificence and magnitude of this character, Ludwig van Beethoven. So do give these 2 cantatas a try and see what it feels like from that experience of actually hearing these 2 works. I'm sure you'll be at least pleasantly surprised, if not sort of bowled over at the genius of the whole ambience of these 2 cantatas. So that's it for this video. There will be more impromptu ones. It was a sort of a book review. I thoroughly recommend this book on Beethoven. It gives a very good balanced view. The author, John Suchet, makes it quite clear when it is his opinion, when it is accounts of Beethoven's life that were retold maybe 40 years after he had died. So there may be some sort of stretching of the truth or embellishment, and John Suchet points this out quite correctly. He quotes his sources for everything. It is a fantastic read. So as much as anything else, you're getting a book review here. So it's John Souchet, Beethoven, The Man Revealed. And that was published in, where are we? I can find it, 2012 by Elliott and Thompson of London. As far as I know, still easily available today, and a fantastic book, easy to read, full of information, and coming from a more sort of an appreciation of the art and the artist's perspective rather than from a musician's perspective. I personally cannot read music, so I appreciate this perspective, and from a psychological point of view, it's a fascinating look into Beethoven's life to say that his childhood was probably not one of the easiest in the world, which would have gone to shape the man. But as so often with Beethoven, you've got these contrasts. What comes through in the music betrays no element of what was going on in his personal life, in particular the 4.5-year protracted guardianship battle over his nephew Karl, between him and his sister-in-law Joanna, which reveals a different side to Beethoven, but I'm not going to judge him, and I invite you to read the book yourself and make your own mind up, which this book invites you to do. It doesn't dictate or say you have to think this way. It leaves it to the reader. So it's a very good insight, I feel, into this outstanding genius of music, probably today the most well-known composer, and looks likely to remain so for many years to come. Of course, time will tell. So that's it for this video. Thank you for listening, and do please check out the Beethoven playlist where you'll find those two cantatas.